Hey everybody, and welcome once again to Nose in the Book, a Bible reading commentary with me, your host, Pastor Justin Van Reed. We have 4 chapters again before us today. We have Genesis chapter 26, followed by Esther chapter 2, and then in the New Testament, Matthew 25 and also Acts 25. And in these 4 chapters, there's a lot going on. There's several things, generally speaking. In most of these chapters, it moves from one event to the next, and so there's a lot of information here. And so if I don't cover everything and there's something that you're interested in, please feel free to pose the question or post a comment in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to get to those. Otherwise, let's take a look at what we have here before us today. Again, we start in Genesis. We're in Genesis chapter 26, and now we've moved on from Abraham, and we're talking about Isaac. And in this chapter, Isaac comes across Abimelech. And again, you have a similar situation to what happened several chapters ago. It's one of these parallels in the lives of Abraham and his son Isaac. And so there's a famine. Now, last time, this drove Abraham to go south to Egypt, and then that whole event where he claimed that Sarah was his sister happened. Here, God actually comes to Isaac, says, don't go to Egypt. Hey, don't do like your father did. And what does Isaac do? Okay, I'll stay. And so he stays where the Lord tells him to, but then he does what his father does, right? Like father, like son. He does what Abraham does here. He lies about Rebekah, his wife, says that it's his sister. And again, when it's found out by Abimelech, just like it was in Egypt with the others, what are you doing? You're going to bring harm to our house. And so he says, well, I thought, because she's so beautiful. These women that these guys marry, they're just so beautiful that they feel like they have to lie about them. But this is all setting up here for another similarity between Abraham and Isaac, which is in this well business. Abraham previously had dug these wells, and now we find out that they had been filled in by the Philistines, and now Isaac's men dig the wells again. But now there's some in the area who are saying, whoa, this water's ours. This is our area. But in reality, I think these were Abraham's wells that are being now disputed with Isaac's men, and you even see Beersheba there again, a well that had previously been dug by Abraham, and Isaac comes there, digs it, and now his men finally get the rights there to that water and to the well. But so you have this dilemma of Isaac being in the land where previously Abraham had already secured some rights here. And so he enters into this treaty with Abimelech. And this is in this section here, again, we have another parallel with Abraham, which is God coming to Abraham saying, hey, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you a great nation. Great peoples are going to come from you. And then God coming to Isaac here in this chapter and saying the same things. God reiterating the promise to Isaac. So I think one of the things that's going on here is God's making it clear that it's Isaac that through whom the promise is being passed, right? It wasn't Ishmael, it was Isaac who was the chosen seed. And look at all the things in Isaac's life that are mirroring now Abraham's life, and God's promise to Abraham is now repeated in a promise to Isaac. So more of that to come here. But we turn now to Esther, in Esther chapter 2. And again, a lot going on. This is the chapter that records about the king Xerxes getting all of these women together, and he's going to replace Vashti. And so basically the process is laid out before us here. The women are prepared, and Esther, again, I believe by the sovereign hand of God, is especially prepared and desirable and loved by the eunuch of the king who is getting these women ready. And so Esther is prepared to meet the king and spend the time with him. And as a result, he loves her. He makes her queen. And this leads to Mordecai finding out about this plot to kill the king Xerxes and reporting it to Esther, because she's now in this position that she's in. And Esther reporting it to the king, and the king finding out that it was in fact true. And of course, this is going to come back. This little story here at the end of Esther 2 is going to come back in later on in the book of Esther. But again here, just several marks that the sovereign hand of God, even though he's not named, is clearly working here. That God is clearly at work in Esther's life and through Esther and in Persia at this time. And you see it here in the way that she is chosen as queen, in the way that she is especially set apart from the other women, even before she spends time with the king. How Mordecai is at the right place at the right time. Coincidence? I don't think so. He's at the right place at the right time. Here's the plot. Esther's in the position she's in so that Mordecai can report it and the king can be saved. And so all of this is happening under the sovereign hand of the Lord. All right, we move into the New Testament here, Matthew chapter 25. And we're still here with Jesus talking, giving his sermon about his return. And in this chapter especially, the focus is on preparation for the return. Will we be prepared when that day comes, when Jesus does in fact return? He gives a couple parables here, one about the bridesmaids that are, some take their oil, some don't have enough oil, and so some are prepared when the bridegroom comes, and the others are not prepared. And then you have similarly a parable about using what God gives until he comes. And so when he does come, will he find that his people were faithful? Were they faithful with whatever it is that he gives them? If he gave a lot, if he gave a little, were they faithful with what God gave them while they were to work until he returned? And so, and then lastly, you have this story of the division here between the sheep and the goats, and here it's clear that God, those who took care of God's people and behaved as God would want them to behave, they're the ones who will enter into his eternity, who did as he would do, who loved those who he would love, showed compassion to those that he would show compassion to. So again here, Matthew chapter 25, finishing up, will we be ready? Are we living in such a way today that shows that we are people of Jesus, that we belong to Jesus, and that we are prepared for his return, not in the sense of just merely an ascent to salvation and knowing him in that sense, but are we walking with him? Are we living in such a way and practicing our faith in such a way that the Lord Jesus, when he returns, will find that we had in fact been living in a prepared manner? All right, we turn over to Acts lastly here, Acts chapter 25. And here we have Paul still on trial. Previously it was Felix, now it's Festus, who he appears before, and the Jews want him to be turned back to Jerusalem. Of course, Paul doesn't want to go back to Jerusalem, be put on trial by the Jewish people. They'll just put him to death. The Lord has told him he's going to Rome. So sovereignly, the sovereign hand of God is again at work here. But Paul says, no, I don't want to go back to Jerusalem. I appeal to Caesar, send me to Rome. And Festus doesn't know, initially what to do here. And so then just so happens Agrippa is in town. And so Festus talks with Agrippa. What do we do here? And so this prepares for Paul to now appear before Agrippa. And so time is just going on here. Paul's in prison. But remember, he has this promise from the Lord that he's going to get to Rome. And it's even supernatural how God ultimately gets him there. But here we see more in the normal course of events, just in human reasoning and human decision making, how God is still sovereignly at work. And so the same God who's at work in the life of Xerxes in the days of the Persia in the Old Testament, and how he's protecting his people through Esther, so he is also God and sovereign at the time of Festus, of Felix, and Agrippa, these rulers here in the New Testament in Acts chapter 25. And that's the same God that still rules and reigns today. Might not always be obvious how he is sovereignly working things out, but he is always working it out according to his plan, his good purpose. And so we can always trust the Lord. All right, that's all we have for today. Again, Genesis 26 and Esther 2, Matthew 25, and Acts 25. Hope you enjoyed this video and discussion together. Again, if you have any comments, you can feel free to post them in the section below. Otherwise, until I see you again, keep your eyes on the Lord and your nose in the book. So long.